Today, the world is watching a war and a narrative unfold at the second. We're looking at the West Asia war that intensifies nearly a month into it. Let's start with the latest developments here. US President Donald Trump spoke with Prime Minister Narendra Modi just a couple of hours ago to discuss the ongoing conflict in the Middle East and the importance of keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. So now we're looking at a likelihood of this war de-escalating. The announcement was made by US Ambassador to India, Sergio Gore, in a post on X. He writes, and I quote, President Donald Trump just spoke with Prime Minister Modi to discuss the ongoing situation in the Middle East, including the importance of keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. Now, this call, amidst heightened tensions in the region, where disruptions to the vital maritime corridor could impact global oil supplies in energy markets, came a day after Donald Trump announced a halt to the planned attacks on Iran, citing productive talks with Tehran and delaying a strike on Iranian power plants by at least 5 days, conditional on the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, on one side, Donald Trump says the conflict could be nearing its end. He talks of major points of agreement, of productive talks, even suggesting the war is, in his words, almost militarily won. This comes after the US-Iran war, now in its fourth week, has sparked debates within the Trump administration about whether the strikes were justified or not. So Trump isn't receiving support from his own country. The United States President Donald Trump has placed responsibility for this decision to launch military strikes against Iran on his Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. In fact, precisely what Donald Trump said, that Pete Hegseth has advised us to go into this war. Listen in.
Then unfortunately I called Pete, I called General Kane, I called a lot of our great people. We have great people. And I said, let's talk. We got a problem in the Middle East. We have a country known as Iran that for 47 years has been just a purveyor of terror. And they're very close to having a nuclear weapon. We can keep going and get that 50,000 up to 55 and 60 is no end. Or we can take a stop and make a little journey into the Middle East and eliminate a big problem.
And Pete, on the other hand, says that Trump would ultimately decide when this war would end. Behind the scenes, names like his top envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, emerge in what appears now to be a quiet back-channel with Tehran. So, may not be formal diplomatic talks, but at least back-channel talks, according to Trump, is on in full swing. But Iran, on the other hand, is calling this out, flatly denying any negotiations with United States, or particularly with Donald Trump or his leadership. Senior leadership of Iran, including Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, is publicly rejecting the very idea of talks now, calling it fake news aimed at manipulating oil markets and masking what they describe as a strategic deadlock. So what's really going on now? Even as talks of peace surfaces now, the reality on the ground is a different story altogether. US and Israeli strikes continue to hit targets deep inside Iran. War still is quite intense. I could say as intense as it was in week 1 or 2. Tehran is retaliating with missiles non-stop, with threats as well, with warnings that regional infrastructure and global shipping lanes remain in the crosshairs. And the most intriguing twist here is reports of a secret message from Abbas Araghchi to the American side, suggesting internal approval to close the story soon. But so, on the face of it, Iran says no negotiation, no talks at all with US. But there are internal reports coming in that Iran could be indeed indulging in talks, but on conditions that are to be met. What are those conditions? We're still unaware. A possible signal from the shadow of Mojtaba Khamenei also, a name that adds another layer to this whole ambiguity here. That also is now coming out as we speak. Internal reports suggesting that people as close to the Supreme Leader are engaging in talks indeed with the United States. Well, News9 had a conclave in Delhi, what India thinks today, and at the conclave, the Israel ambassador Reuven Azar talked about US President's role in stopping this war and when the war can possibly end as well. Let's listen in.
I think it's fair that the President of the United States is trying to get an agreement. We support that. But it doesn't mean that we're going to get into a ceasefire immediately before an agreement is reached.
Now, while Iranian ambassador, on the other hand, Abdul Majid Hakim, Elahi, has said Iran never initiated this war. We want to stop it immediately. This is what he says. Iran side.
Iran didn't want even single drop of blood of any innocent person be shared on the earth. But unfortunately, they initiated this war and they will not stop it. But they said in the several occasions that they want unconditional surrender of Iran. And you know, Iran wants to stand up on his dignity, humanity, and they want justice.
Soon after the president signaling rallied the market and drove down the price of Brent crude by nearly 20%. Asian stocks opened higher as investors pinned hopes on easing military tensions in the Middle East. But the global economy is still facing a major threat and a challenge. So is this war actually nearing a negotiated end, or are we witnessing a high-stakes information battle here, layered on top of a very real military conflict? Two narratives, one battlefield. And as of now, we have hardly any clarity. I'm going to quickly bring in our guest joining us for a little more in detail here on whether this war is indeed coming to an end. We have Major General Sudhakar Ji, who is defense and strategy expert, joining us. We also have Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, who's a former Indian diplomat who's also served in Iran. And we also have Rohan Gunaratna, who's a professor, security studies, Nanyang Technological University, and editor of Handbook of Terrorism in the Middle East, who's live from Uzbekistan. Thanks very much, all of you, for joining us. I'd start with Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. Sir, as you've seen Iran close, work there, serve there, Iran says we've had no negotiations with the United States, but yet we have some internal reports suggesting that there are people close to Mujtaba who's indulging indeed in talks with the United States, but have given several conditions to the US, which they're not really revealing. Does this look like Iran itself? Because Trump says we're fully in talks. If Iran is denying it, then they need a better spokesperson. That's Trump's style, and he's sticking to that template. But Iran, on the other hand, is being very mysterious, not really divulging details. But on one hand, we do hear that they are certainly in talks with the US. What's the fact?
Well, Nabila, first of all, the United States indulged in a gross violation of the UN Charter. The attack on Iran was totally illegal, and a whole range of global experts and legal experts have said this. Moreover, the United States also miscalculated Iran's ability to fight back. Trump said in the beginning the war will be over in 1 week. And the Israelis also gave the same impression. But you know, after June 2025, when Iran had been first attacked, while the nuclear talks were going on, what happened after that was that although there was a ceasefire, Iran built its defense capabilities. And when the Americans and the Israelis attacked Iran, it was able to hit back in a very convincing manner. I don't think Trump expected that. Now, Donald Trump is faced with a situation that he is totally involved in a war and doesn't know how to get out of it. He is trying to send overtures to Iran, first of all, threatening them that he will completely finish all their power stations, etc. And then when Iran threatened back, said that we will do the same in the entire region, well, he said there's a 5-day moratorium and that Iran must talk to us and peace, etc. and all. And you know, Iran has completely dismissed all suggestions that it is willing to take part in talks. Iran has said that all the media reports and all the American statements are fake. So, by the look of things, we are not approaching the end of the war.
Do you entirely believe Iran, of Iran who's currently weak but projecting muscle? Do you entirely believe Iran, sir?
Well, no.
Because we know for a fact, as much as they're projecting to be strong and claim to have the weaponry to go on in this war, We know what could be the real truth. They're really damaged, bruised, and bleeding.
But Nabila, they have been able to hit back. Look at the way they have been able to strike very close to the nuclear establishment in Israel, and they have attacked various sites which were crucial for the Americans in the Gulf area. So the threat of the Iranians has actually been fulfilled by them. Look at the Strait of Hormuz. The Americans are scared that the Iranians may have mined them. So I don't think the Iranians have really sort of only shown their muscle and not lived up to it. Iranian actions speak louder than their words. And the Americans never expected that the Iranians would be able to resist in this manner. And that is why, after saying that we will decimate the Iranians, etc., now Donald Trump is trying to reach out to the Iranians. But the Iranians have put very stiff conditions. These are that the United States must completely close all its military bases in West Asia. And also that the United States must give full reparation, financial compensation, and that it should have a permanent agreement against any future attack on Iran. There is a whole lot of points in this which are very, very difficult for the Americans to accept. For this reason, I don't think the war is going to come so easy, to an end so easily.
The war won't come to an end so easily, but it looks like Donald Trump is very eager to get this war to finish at the earliest. Today we saw the markets just, going on a complete green in the United States. I'm not too sure if this was any manipulation, but we saw this in the last 2 days. US markets are doing very well ever since Donald Trump said that there have been positive talks with Iran. Rohan Gunaratna, you're currently in Uzbekistan. Would you want to chime in on that, on the US markets doing very well ever since Donald Trump has said positive talks have happened with Iran? What do you believe this signaling really is? Will it really lead to an end to this war?
Nabila, the markets went up because of Trump's suggestion that there will be talks. But in reality, if you look at the ground, the Americans have moved a very large contingent of specialist troops, in this case, the American Marines, to the Middle East. So it is very likely that there will be a limited ground invasion, a ground intervention to secure the Straits of Hormuz. And if you look at the capabilities of the United States and Iran, the Iranian capabilities are terminal. The number of missiles and the drones and other projectiles they have fired has declined very sharply. Certainly, they can protract the fight, but Iran is definitely not going to win. Iran also is mobilizing the Shia proxies and the terrorist and the extremist groups that it has supported and continues to direct and guide. And of course, the Gulf countries has taken, as you said, a significant beating. But at the same time, the Gulf countries do not want the current Ayatollah regime to rule Iran. It is not a question of what is right or wrong in war. It is a question of capabilities. The Americans and the Israelis in the last 12 hours have inflicted very significant damage on Iran, and they have been continuing to do that since February 28th. And we have seen steadfastly that Iran's capabilities are eroding, and it will come to a point where they will not be able to sustain the current fight.
So, may I ask you, why is the Gulf averse to Ayatollah Khamenei? Now, he's anyway dead. His son is the supreme leader. Why is the Gulf opposed to that regime?
Since 1979, when the Ayatollahs came to power in Tehran, they have done three things. One is they have supported a number of Shia and Sunni militia as well as terrorist groups. They did the terrible terrorist attack in Beirut in 83, killing 241 Marines and 40 French paratroopers. And they have done terrorist attacks in Argentina, in Australia, in Thailand, in a number of countries. It is a regime that mounts operations, mounts attacks, and it has armed Hamas, it has armed the Houthis, it has armed the Hashd Shabi or the Popular Mobilization Forces in Iraq. So it is it is the largest state sponsor of terrorism. Second is it has built a missile capability not only to protect itself but to attack other countries. In the last 48 hours, we have seen an attempt even to strike the US British base in Deo Gracia. And third is, of course, it has invested in building a functional nuclear weapon. And we do not know whether they were going to have a nuclear breakout, but what we know is that they were enriching uranium, and this has been acknowledged by the International Atomic Energy Agency. And I think that if Iran acquires a nuclear weapon, it will trigger an arms race in the Middle East. And if Middle Eastern countries have nukes, I think it is going to destabilize the world. So I believe that it is a question of time that there will be a change in Iran. There will be a democracy. There will be a more responsible regime that doesn't support the militias and terrorist groups worldwide. It do not build missile capabilities beyond what is needed to protect itself. And third is, of course, under the NPT, Iran has no right to build a nuclear weapon, and they have been doing that. So I believe that sooner or later, there will be sufficient pressure for the current regime to give up these capabilities or for there to be a regime change. And you know very well that probably 8,000 to 30,000 people were killed by this regime during the protests. So I think that their conduct, their behavior is not befitting that of a government.
You know, today India is talking to Iran and talking to Iran in multiple rounds of talks, of course, to allow our ships to move through the Strait of Hormuz, also condoling the death of Khamenei. India has engaged in talks with Iran at this point. Where do you think India stands here? If, you know, considering there's been enough said about India being silent largely for a reason. We do not want to be dragged into this West Asia war. Indian diplomacy has been praised as well, but on one hand, where we were largely viewed as pro-Israel or at least a friend of Israel, today we're also being we're balancing it out by also engaging in talks with Iran. So how do you view that?
India has a very good relationship with Iran, and for a very long time you have maintained an excellent relationship, and I think it is good for that the Indian government is communicating with Tehran during this period, and they have no right to close the Straits of Hormuz. Straits of Hormuz doesn't belong to them. There are other countries that are using the strait. So I believe that again, it is a blackmail that Iran is saying that they will not allow the Straits of Hormuz to be used. Countries that do not conduct themselves in an appropriate manner sooner or later will be punished. It is true that Israel and the United States mounted this attack on February 28th. But at the same time, there's very good reason for doing that. In the case of Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, Ansarullah, all these groups that attacked Israel were supported, directed, trained, funded by Iran. And of course, it's building a nuclear capability that poses existential threat to the security and stability of Israel. And of course, the Americans consider Israel as a model ally, and the Americans will not want Israel to be threatened in that fashion. So I believe that It will take time, but certainly the Ayatollah regime is on its way out.
All right. Let me also bring in Major General Sudhakarji. Sir, your take on Iran at this point getting immense support from Russia and China, but I'm not too sure how far this support is coming, is really materializing. Is it just moral support, or is there weaponry or intelligence shared? Is that why we're looking at an emboldened Iran, a very strong Iran who's refusing to buckle? Give us a little perspective into what kind of support Iran has. We see the Gulf not really supporting Iran. In fact, they've lost out of favor all the more after badgering some of the Gulf countries. But they have support from the world's two biggest economies, China and Russia. Seems like India is also a friend.
Yeah, Nabila, good evening. Thank you for inviting me for the show, and my compliments and greetings to very distinguished co-panelists. There are more than one point in your question, so let me tackle them one by one. But before I come to the core issue, I hope you got time. The first issue I want to clarify, never underestimate your
Yes, sir.
enemy.
Please go on.
Never underestimate. No matter how powerful US and Israel may be, again, they may be having a second spiral of onslaught from the Iranians, because I, for one, without coming or being considered as siding with Iran or terrorism, I'm totally in agreement with our fellow panelists that Iran doesn't have any place for to exist in the civilized world. But at the same time, here is a threat which needs to be addressed in a holistic manner and in a comprehensive manner. Holistic and comprehensiveness comes in only if the intelligence about Iran is accurate. Unfortunately, I must bring out that neither the Mossad nor the CIA have been able to do their job properly. They're far from what is desirable. That is why Iran is playing merry hell with the heavy stockpile of missiles, which earlier we thought 3,000 given in the social or in the open sources, and got a handful of drones. The drones, once you start going details into the details of the issue, you find that they are no match. Iran knows that they cannot win the game. Iran knows that they are fighting a war wherein they want to raise the cost of winning for America and Israel. How do they raise the cost of winning? They raise the cost of winning by prolonging the conflict, and they continue to unleash the asymmetric warfare, and they tire the opponents down. The same age-old Muhammad Ali concept or strategy of boxing, rope the dope. You tire the opponent so much so that towards the fag end, they'll be left with very little, and they may have to either call it off or project or present such a target which will be an easy knockout. I am not saying that Iran is strong, but never underestimate. Now let me just allow me to give out the defense capability of USA and Israel. As on today, the USA and Israel, firstly, USA is after a long time is engaging or fighting or confronting a country directly, not through a proxy, after a long time. Earlier time, if I recall, maybe a couple of years back, there are other examples. We can take Iraq, Syria, Libya, but there has been a gap. Now, in this gap, what has happened is that despite the concept of octopus doctrine and Mao the grass by Israel, somehow the Iranian regime, nobody has been able to stop the progressive growth in the military inventory. They know that they can't afford to have an air force. There is an intercept distance of 1,800 to 2,000 kilometers, or maybe 2,200 kilometers between Israel and Iran. Therefore, they have gone in for the missiles. Now, the defense capability of USA and Israel, if I may break it down very quickly, they have got main 4 platforms. First is the interceptor. Interceptors take anything between 1.5 to 3 years to manufacture. The cost of an interceptor, depending on the attacking object or the target which is coming, varies between 1.1 million to $11 million. Okay, so now interceptors are on a state of depletion. One, Iron Dome without interceptor has got no meaning. They have got David Sling, they have got Arrowhead 2 and 3, but each of them have got some component which is actually, meeting the requirement of an interceptor. Now, to negate or neutralize one drone, which cost around 20,000 before the commencement of the war, I have been corrected by many specialist domain experts that the cost of these drones, Kamikaze Shahid 136, is not costing 20,000. Iran has gone in for mass production and it's costing between $2,000 to $5,000. As against $2,000 to $5,000, they have to use one missile which is costing 4 million. Being a military man, I must say that nobody can neutralize or negate or destroy the oncoming projectile with one missile. They have to fire minimum 2 to 3 missiles. So therefore the cost is out of proportion, goes up to 12 million to $2,000. You can work out the ratio. Now come to the second one, Tomahawk missile. America, as on today, despite having the best industry in the world, top 10, out of top 10, they have got top 6. They produce only just about, some places you find 74, but let's give the benefit of doubt, say 84 Tomahawk missile per year. I am given to understand, I hope I am wrong, they say that in past 12 days conflict of last year and this year, the ongoing conflict of 24 days, they have already spent 484 Tomahawk missiles. Now, the stock levels at the strategic level, that is the command headquarters, which is at Florida and the forward base being at Qatar, it is depleted below 600, as against a state of 1,500 to 2,000. Now come to the Patriot missile. Patriot missile, the state is same. In order to beef up the strength or the holding inventory, they are shifting some of the assets, military assets, from South Korea, Japan, Philippines, Australia under the name of cannibalization. The real equipment's launch pads are shifting under cannibalization. Under these circumstances, we all are aware of one thing, that China has set a target to reunify Taiwan. Whether it happens or not, it's anybody's guess, time will tell us. But China had actually decided a very firm date that by 1st of August 2027 or earlier than that, it will go all out to reunify Taiwan. If that happens, then the question comes, what is the status of TR-8 1979? What is the role of USA? The Indo-Pacific Command, which is supposed to have a larger stock of inventory of all the 3 weapon systems I have just enlisted, they're supposed to have more than 1,500 each. Their stock level is down. So given the cost factor and the time taken to manufacture these and the weaponization of rare earth element and critical mineral by China since 2023 onwards, although they have a hiatus for 1 year, but that also is not reliable. If China twists the tail and weaponizes the provision of the rare earth element and the critical minerals, well, USA is going to be behind schedule. Therefore, Pentagon has demanded not X times. If there is to demand X time of weapons per year, they have demanded 4 times the X this year. And the industrial leaders have been called up. Donald Trump has spoken to them. He told them, no matter what you do, instead of whether you take 4 years or 5 years, I want everything to be available within 1 year. This is the biggest question mark as far as the defense capability is concerned, whether Israel or USA. USA is 11,000 kilometers or 8,000 as far as Israel is concerned, approximately 11,000 kilometers from Iran. This distance also it imposes some restrictions on the logistics. That also has to be factored in. Last but not the least, the domestic constituency as far as America is concerned is not approving the very idea of going ahead and extending the conflict which is going on in the Middle East. Therefore, Donald Trump is in a bind between restraint and escalation.
Yeah.
Where does it go? And therefore, people are saying Netanyahu has actually put him into an escalatory entrapment. Whether it is true or not true, that we can decide. Last but not the least, about the Iran. Iran produces 400 drones every day. I'm talking about the Kamikaze 136, Shahid 136, 400. In a month, they have a target of about 12,000. Even if it is not 12,000, grant them 8 to 10,000. They have a stockpile of 86,000. The Shahid 136. They have different varieties. There is a variety called as 238 with a range of 4,000 kilometers. It can go as far as the out of ranges northern borders of the European countries. And therefore, I would say, let's not, even if they have an old missile system, their manufacturing of missiles started in the year of 1984, 85. They had an objective of producing 30 missiles per month. There have been slippages here and there. And every year they had a target of 3,600. There have been attrition and expenditure in between. In Iraq war, Hezbollah itself had 150,000 at one point in time, including the rockets. And if you count by, say, 50% what I am actually sharing, that also puts the figure of the inventory more than 5 lakh. And even if, say, a lot of my friends say missiles also retire after a certain age, give them that, grant them that benefit of doubt. Even if they retire, there is a provision to resuscitate. You can revive, you can resuscitate the missiles, you can activate them, and that is how they are going in for a thing called a saturation attack. Saturation attack is defined by the volume and the simultaneity of the projectiles fired in a very condensed time frame, may not be 24/7, 365, maybe once in 7 days, one particular target in a defined time frame, and it goes in such intense and high density form that interceptors, they have already given up as it is. They have been found to be ineffective, and they have easy penetration. And more than that, they have got variety of hypersonic missiles. And one more point is the ICBM, which is under development. It is not very far off from reaching the advanced stage. And I totally agree with you that Russia and China, Russia has come openly. It has started saying that they are supporting Iran, and they will continue to support. Let's be mindful of the fact they had a strategic partnership in January 2025. This year only, all the three countries have signed a trilateral agreement. There are lots of hardwares which have come on 28th of January 2026. 28th of January to 31st of January, 56 aircrafts came from China. They have landed in different airports, mainly in Tehran. What did they carry? Similar kind of aircrafts also have come from Russia. What did they carry? Did they carry only S-400? I'm given to understand 4 batteries of S-400 are on their way to come to Iran for deployment. That's all. If there is any other query, I can clarify. Back to you, please.
Wow. All right. That's it. That's all we have time for as well. I think you went thoroughly in detail, and that's what we wanted. I did not want to interrupt you. You had great flow with that and great information. We're only hoping, in your eyes, it's not going to end anytime in the next week or two. In a quick answer, sir.
Oh, you're asking me? Donald Trump, to end the conflict, Donald Trump has to take a very sharp and blind U-turn. There are no escapes. For him, he can actually waffle around in his language.
Which I suspect he will.
And he will say that I have already achieved more than I.
Which I suspect he will, considering. Correct, exactly. He's going to say, I've already won, and take a U-turn, because as fast as he went into it, he might even pull back as quick.
No, there is one point.
Thank you very much, sir. That's all I have time for. Thank you very much. Major General Sudhakar ji, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, and Rohan Gunaratna. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time joining us.